And I again say to you in conclusion, the reason I talked about this at length was because I knew the networks were here, and they're going to use you, in my judgment, as a group of average citizens expressing their opposition to this trifling with the health and safety of their child. And I remember it was Hitler who took over the education of the children in Germany, and it's Russia that's taken over the education of her children. And when there are those who say that a law that allows the parent or guardian to determine whether the health or safety is involved, who else better can decide that? And that's what the law that we have sponsored in Alabama, they say it'll be stricken down. I don't know how they can strike it down. They strike everything down, but public opinion is what's going to win out in the long run. And I hope you'll continue your opposition, and I hope you'll insist that your leaders. We can't do everything, but I can tell you tonight in Pritchard, Alabama, that I've tried all I know how to do, and I'll continue to try because I know it's not hopeless. Thank you. Yeah, you know, we hear so much today about the problems of congestion and delay threaten to shatter the pillars of justice. Crimes of violence are on the increase. Many complaints are voiced about the administration of criminal justice. The trial of the Chicago Seven and the trial of the Charles Manson family reveal that there are those who are attempting to make a mockery of our system of criminal justice. Certain revolutionaries feel that if they can destroy the orderly process of justice, then the foundations of democracy will begin to crumble, and they are right. We also find that our system of justice is being undermined by misdirected teachers, ministers, counselors, and leaders from all walks of life. Such misguided leaders openly teach, preach, and write that one should obey only the laws that he considers to be just, and that one is perfectly within his rights to disobey any law that he feels is unjust. This attack is widespread, progressive, and of destructive import. If this insidious attack is not met head-on, there can be no effective administration of justice, and the law of the land will be the law of chaos. Hey, agent, for the quit walking back and forth. You know.
Mr. President! Mr. President!
And I think we'd like to see them all here. And I will try not to introduce them in order of protocol, but I think you will be interested in meeting first a member of my cabinet who has served in a very distinguished way, your own, Alabama's own Postmaster General Red Blunt. Let me say that coming here to Birmingham, after being in Mobile, seeing the vitality of this area, seeing the great love of country that you have, whether there are Democrats or Republicans among those that I visited, whether they are officials or people in any walks of life, there is a respect for the office of the presidency, there is a respect for this country and the love of this country. Let me say, I am convinced that what is now termed the New South, with new economic development, with new strength, is going to contribute enormously to America in the future. But even more important than that is the spirit that you have. When it was very weak, this nation had a spirit. You all remember what it was. A spirit that caught the imagination of the world. It was called the spirit of the American Revolution. And there are some who say we don't have it today. Well, they're wrong. I sense it here. I sense it every place I go over this country. The American spirit is strong. It is deep. We have had problems of division, differences between states, between regions, between religions, between races, between the generations. But let me say, Americans are united in their devotion to peace. They are united in wanting to build a stronger country, a country in which all Americans can have an equal opportunity for good education, for good jobs, for good housing. All of these things we are for.
I don't ever remember one state having two top candidates for the Heisman Trophy either. Would you tell us a little bit about your candidate, Johnny Musso, what he does best, and why you think he ought to win the big trophy?
Well, of course, I don't know how much chance Johnny had, particularly after he was injured, but I think he's, one to be considered as well as Pat and Beasley. But Johnny is a complete football player. He does everything well. I think last year and the year before, I think he was our second leading pass receiver when we were throwing the ball a lot. And, of course, he's a tremendous blocker, probably the best blocker. John Crow, of course, was bigger and a great blocker. And Johnny, of course, is a great ball carrier, and he runs better where it's thick than anyone I've ever had or seen, really. He's a complete player, and like most great players, I think he certainly has those leadership qualities, and I think it means a great deal to our team that way.
Would you talk a little about Sullivan, what he does best, and why you think he should win the Heisman?
Well, I think you have to start with Pat as a person. Pat, imperturbable Pat, I've called him on so many occasions, and I go back to the first game of his career as a varsity football player, not the first really, it was the second, when we played Tennessee in Knoxville. And I know I was not imperturbable after that football game. We had lost with a flurry of pass interceptions, our introduction to artificial turf, a hot, humid afternoon in Knoxville. Really, it was a fine football game. I think there was 5 points different between the two teams, Auburn and Tennessee, with about 11 minutes to play. But then all heck broke loose, and Pat did throw the interceptions. Well, of course, I was real down after the ball game, most of the team, but not Pat Sullivan. And as a matter of fact, he was a guy that pulled the team together that afternoon in the dressing room, and I'll never forget him for that. So, imperturbable Pat, a priceless personality, an honest, God-fearing young man with poise and honesty and loyalty to the people he knows. That is Pat. Then, of course, you get into Pat as a football player. Pat is a leader on the field. He's a leader off the field. He has great ability. I think we all acknowledge that. He can throw the football long or short, and with precision and with great timing and a quick release and good balance, no matter what position he's in. And some athletes are endowed with this attribute that no matter what position he is, he's on balance, or else he makes his arm make him on balance, if that's a good way to put it. He can run with the football. His handoffs are precision. And so those are some of the things. Maybe we could talk on for many, many minutes about Pat Sullivan, but I see Pat as a person that I've described. I also see him as a football player that I've described. And he's simply terrific. And you've mentioned the Heisman Trophy, and I want to say this. If there's a better football player or more deserving football player of the Heisman Trophy than Pat Sullivan, I haven't heard of him yet.
Well, customarily when we dig a site of this type, we'll carry the excavation down as deep as we can to ensure that we have managed to examine all the vertical structure, just to eliminate any chance of losing any early material. In the process of doing this, we encountered another level that we didn't know existed, which pertained to what we call a Cobb Swamp culture, named for a place in Elmore County. These people lived sometime before the time of Christ. Carbon-14 dating between what we find here and what has been found in Georgia, where it has actually been dated, indicates that we're dealing with at least a 2,000-year-old culture. So this was very gratifying because we had a separation between the Cobb Swamp level, which is almost 2 feet deep here, and the Callaway culture, which must have been several hundred years later. These are later people who arrived and camped here. And in between this layer, we get a sandy zone, which is practically free of artifact. This indicated to us there was a long period of flooding after the abandonment of the site by the first culture. In other words, 2,000 years ago there was excessive flooding for a long period of time. And after the repeated flooding subsided, then the site was reoccupied again in this Callaway period that I've just mentioned about. One of the interesting things about the site is that we're finding house floors and house posts, giving us an idea of the shape and the size of houses of these two different periods that we didn't know anything about before. This is a sort of an archaeological contribution that we can make here in this area, since this is unknown data in the state of Alabama as far as we know. Thus far we haven't found any burials of these people. We have found pieces of human bone mixed up in the shell, which probably are coming from this Callaway culture. The type of material we find for the most part involves mostly pottery. We do find animal bone, which is deer and possum and a rabbit, whatever they happen to be eating at the time. We find this in both levels, although in the earlier level we find more of it. Sometimes we find artifacts made of bone, as I've already shown you. And although we haven't seen anything made out of the shell, they had plenty of shell to work with. Some Indians made things out of shell, others didn't. We have found a number of arrowheads, stone arrow points, but they're not too common. We found bits and pieces of stone axes, and no metal at all. These people did not use any metal. There's some reason to believe that in the early culture times they may have known about copper, but we don't find it here.
I'm happy to announce that our institution is establishing an associate degree of nursing in Montgomery, a decision that I believe is in keeping with the current trend in nursing education and the increasing need for nurses in Central and South Alabama. Troy State is a regional institution, and we feel a definite responsibility to help meet the health needs of the people we serve. Sister Marilyn, director of the St. Margaret School of Nursing, is cooperating in the establishment of the new program. After a long and careful study, the Board of Directors of St. Margaret's Hospital has decided to phase out its School of Nursing, and St. Margaret officials support the establishment of an ADN program at Troy State. The establishment of an ADM program into a senior institution is a national trend and a step in the right direction. We already have a baccalaureate program in nursing, and Troy State intends to make a strong effort to articulate the two programs. This will give Troy State a greatly strengthened 4-year and 2-year program, and both will be identified with quality. The two programs will be under the same dean, Sister Lucille Marie, and there will be a mutual understanding of the facilities of both programs.
A lot of people say, Joe, that regardless of how they did last year, and of course it was a year of injury, that the Jets are still the best football team in the world. What do you think?
Well, right now Baltimore is. I think the Baltimore Colts are the best in the world right now because they proved that. We have the personnel that's capable of being the best football team in the world. On the other hand, so does Dallas, so does Baltimore again, so does Minnesota. There's a lot of teams that are capable of winning a world championship. Usually there's 6 or 8 teams prior to a season, and you have to be fortunate. You got to be lucky. You watch that Dallas-Baltimore game, Craig Morton threw a perfect pass to his receiver, went through his hands, Baltimore intercepts it, goes back, kicks field goal. The other interception the Volt got went down the 3-yard line, was right to the receiver, through his hands, and they intercepted it, and then they blamed Morton for the loss, you know. But meantime,
he's an unhappy guy.
Oh, of course he's unhappy. He's a heck of a nice guy, and he didn't play as badly as they said he did. But Baltimore was the best team, and I'm glad they won because that's who I picked.
All right. You did. In fact, you called it pretty close.
Called it exact. There's a difference.
All right, I'll buy that.